The issue has in the meantime become a political hot potato. Is in the Supreme Court. There is a bit of disinformation campaign going on with regard to the formula, etc. It's very important to basically look at all these aspects very carefully and then come to a kind of conclusion which will attract investment in exploration production in the country, also satisfy operators, and at the same time takes care of concerns and interest of fertilizer and power, and more importantly that this can be explained to the people of the country.
That would have given the gas companies incentive to plan for producing more gas, and more domestic gas output would have increased. I don't see really much to be gained, because if you had done this, there would have been no really immediate impact on price of gas, because it would have taken more time, some time for new gas to come in, and even if the new gas would be a small fraction of the total domestic gas. So the increase in price would have been gradual. So I'm really surprised.
The earnings estimates now have to be rejigged to bring in the reality that the oil price the gas price may not go up. That should make for some adjustment downwards, and to that extent the valuations of these companies, especially those which was to get benefit from the gas, would actually fall. Unilateral increase in prices across the board is not the best thing that will help the market, and we have to de-link the word reform for increased prices.
All right, let's get in our expert panel then for a 360-degree understanding of this decision, or the lack of one, and its impact really on the oil companies and in the energy sector in general. We've got two special guests joining in. Swaminathan Aiyar, consulting editor, ET Now, and Prashant Bhushan, a man who's campaigned extensively against the gas price hike in the first place. Swami, to you first. Narendra Modi is known to be a decisive leader. What's gone wrong here on the issue of gas pricing? There was a formula in place, one that was cleared by the previous government's cabinet. What's gone wrong according to you?
Well, it seems to me that anybody who thought that Modi is either tough or decisive needs to completely revise their point of view. If you see what happened on the railways, see what happened on sugar prices, you see what's happened on gas prices. I mean, utterly gutless, utterly lacking in the ability to take a tough decision. In fact, what is their question of tough decision? In all the NELP contracts, it clearly said that any gas would be sold at market price. A market price is to be determined between buyers and sellers in the market. Only in India do you have government committees deciding a market price. There is a cabinet sitting determining the market price. Excuse me, do you understand what the word market means? When you want the price of mangoes, does the cabinet committee sit and discuss the price of mangoes? With the price of cement, does Rangrarajan tour the whole world to say what is the price of cement in other capitals and have some kind of average? I'm sorry, the NELP contracts are very clear. Gas or oil is to be sold at the market price. The market price should be determined by auction. We have the Supreme Court saying that you must auction natural resources. So spectrum must be auctioned. Coal must be auctioned. Now what about gas? Why are you not auctioning gas? Both according to the Supreme Court judgment and according to all the exploration contracts, there is supposed to be a market price. The market price should be discovered in the market between buyers and sellers. It is outrageous to have a situation where there are cabinet committees and cabinet ministers deciding the price as though this is supposed to be a controlled commodity, when all the exploration contracts made it very, very clear that it's supposed to be a market price. India's name is mud the world over, saying, you promised a market price and instead you're having a government controlled price. This particular new government is continuing with that same badmashi of you don't care what your word means in the world. You have given the world, your word, that there will be a market price. We'd say that doesn't matter. When I come to power, government, a minister, politicians will decide the price, and this is supposed to be the market.
All right, badmashi as Swami calls it. But Mr. Bhushan, you attend court every day, and I want to ask you this question. The Supreme Court has very categorically said that natural resources should indeed be auctioned. Why should gas then be an exception? Why should prices be kept artificially low? And a bunch of ministers, like Swami pointed out there, take a call without the technical know-how of gas production.
Well, that's a good question. There can be a case made out for auctioning gas fields, in which case at least we would be getting much better revenue out of our own natural gas than what we have been getting so far. So far we have been charging some royalty which is a minuscule part of the total gas price. So therefore, if it's auctioned, then we would then the country would certainly get more. It's another matter that gas prices that thereafter would cannot be regulated by the government, but those are all pros and cons which need to be discussed. But certainly you cannot have a situation where the gas price is neither regulated and the gas fields are not even auctioned and given away for free, just as other mineral resources are being given away for free and the price is not regulated either. So therefore, the private company which gets a lease gets a huge windfall or a bonanza for nothing.
But Mr. Bhushan, let's talk about the decision per se, like we've been saying, the lack of one. The fact that the government hasn't given in to an incredible amount of pressure really being put on them, isn't that a positive? You know, or would you look at it and say that the government has in a sense shied away from taking a call on what is become a hugely contentious political issue? How would you read today's development?
Well, the fact that they have deferred it for 3 months clearly shows that they have shied away from taking a decision right now, because they are apprehensive of the political fallout of this, because this has become a major issue. This was made a major issue by the Aam Aadmi Party, especially in the light of the fact that there has been now a second CAG report on this, which shows that Reliance Industries has been engaged in very large number of gross violations of their own production sharing contract, of lowering or bringing down the gas production much below their commitment, of not relinquishing their fields, of over invoicing, inflating their costs, etc., etc. So in the light of all this, if gas prices were increased now, instead of the gas fields being taken back from Reliance and the contract cancelled, it would have certainly become a major political issue in this country.
Mr. Bhushan, if I may quickly ask you, what do you think has really played, actually Swami, I want to pose that question to you. What do you think has played on the government's mind really? Is it the fact that inflation is still high, or is it the fact that decision could have favoured Reliance Industries, the whole radioactive word of Reliance being a decision there? What do you think really played on the government's mind, Swami?
I would say it's all of the above. The fact is that Reliance's production is hardly 10% of total production. But we've got into a situation where everybody wants to get Reliance for various alleged crimes, and because you can't get them through various other things, get them through the price of gas. Now, I'm all for catching corrupt people for corrupt acts. I am against catching them through price control on contracts which were not supposed to be for price control. Now, it's one thing to say that there are NELP contracts and there are non-NELP contracts, and I have no quarrel with the government setting a separate price for non-NELP contracts on whatever basis it wants. I'm merely saying if you want to attract foreign investment, if your word has any meaning in the world, then when you say in these contracts that we will be at the world price, those should be at the world price. And if only we had those at the world price, by now ONGC would have produced much more offshore gas. Gujarat State Petroleum Corporation would have probably produced much more. We may have attracted much more investment. We may have found much more oil and much more gas. But the moment you have a situation where the supposed market price is determined by Rangrarajan committees and cabinet committees, at that point the world will say this country is not serious. This country tells a bunch of lies. What it writes in the contract has nothing to do with the actuality. Why should I invest in this country? That is the situation you are in. You need to get out of that situation. At the very least, you must stick to the contract word in the case of the NELP contract.
But you know, Swami, as someone who understands political economy, is there also an attempt here to send out a signal, you know, a signal that the government is not really as pro-business as many, you know, see it to be? Because, you know, if the government had gone ahead and hiked gas prices, this whole charge of crony capitalism would have started doing the rounds again. And perception is that this government is pro-big business. So, in a sense, do you think this was done to shed that image? Would you agree with that assessment?
There is a difference between being market friendly and businessman friendly. If you are friendly to some particular businessman, that particular thing is called crony capitalism. It is against all the principles of normal capitalism. So we need a competitive market, and in a competitive market you have auctions. I mean, what is it that the CAG talked about in the case of Spectrum? He said it was not auctioned. The market price is to be determined in the market through auctions. Supreme Court said exactly the same thing. So if you want to be market friendly, you must decide things by auction price. The same thing is true of coal. You must have the same for gas. So, you know, the idea that you want to appear friendly, you must appear friendly to all industry and not to one particular businessman here or one particular businessman there. Let me add that, as the Minister himself has pointed out, I mean, Reliance is producing only a small proportion of total amount of gas. The biggest beneficiary by far will be the public sector of a higher gas price. So, I mean, while the way Arvind Kejriwal and others have framed the debate, it is as though any increase in gas price is only going to help Ambani. I mean, that is just completely wrong. That is not the case. So, I would simply say, I see the logic in having a distinction between the NELP and the non-NELP contracts. For the old ones, where there was a nomination, if you say that you want to have a Rangrarajan or some cabinet committee, you can do that. I'm merely saying wherever you have an exploration contract where you have told the whole world that this is to be at market price, those should be at market prices. Even if you look at a country like the United States, many countries, different contracts have different prices. And different contracts are for different periods. Why are we having one price for 5 years? In America, you can have one contract for 1 year, for 5 years, for 10 years, and a whole lot of other amount of gas is sold on the spot market. That is what markets mean. Why are we not moving towards that in India?
Mr. Bhushan, that's a potent argument. You can be pro-free market economy. You don't necessarily have to be pro-industry, because that's where allegations of crony capitalism arise from, don't they?
No, you are right. You can be pro-business, you can be pro-market without being crony capitalist. But this decision does not signal that, because in that case the decision would have been that no hike in gas price for the foreseeable future. Instead of that, they have merely deferred this decision for the next 3 months, and steps should have been initiated already for cancelling the contract with Reliance and taking back the fields from Reliance. Because if you look at these two CAG reports along with two reports of two parliamentary standing committees, they make out a very strong case for cancelling this production sharing contract and taking back the fields from Reliance.